So these are two of the biggest and baddest Android phones of 2017 and is probably the most highly anticipated comparison that you've all been waiting for. So let's get right into it. This is the LG V30 versus the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. Starting off with the specifications, the LG V30 and Galaxy Note 8 are packing the same Snapdragon 835 processor and GPU. The only part where they differ is the RAM. The Note 8 has 6 GB of RAM, whereas the V30 has 4, but I don't feel like this extra 2 gigs of RAM really gives the Note 8 a performance edge, at least not in normal day-to-day use. Both of them run very smoothly whether you're launching apps, multitasking, web browsing, or playing games. I haven't had any performance issues with either one. They're both very fast and reliable phones for anything that you want to do. Battery life on the V30 and Note 8 are pretty comparable as well. They have the same size 3300 mAh battery, and I can easily get through a full day on either one with 4.5 to 5 hours of screen on time, regardless of how light or how heavy I use the device. They both also offer a pretty similar set of hardware features. Most importantly, they both come with a headphone jack, but you've also got expandable storage via micro SD, IP68 water and dust resistance, wireless charging, and they both come with fingerprint sensors on the back, but the V30's fingerprint sensor is definitely a lot easier to use since it's centered along the back and more comfortable to reach with an index finger, and the fact that it doubles as a power button is a nice bonus. The Note 8's fingerprint sensor is an improvement over the S8 with it being slightly more recessed and farther away from the camera, but you can tell this is just a band-aid solution until Samsung figures out something better. There's other methods of unlocking the V30 and Note 8 if you'd rather not use the fingerprint sensor, such as face unlock, and in the case of the Note 8 you also have the iris scanner, which works just as well as face unlock but is going to be a little more secure. There's a couple of things on the Note 8 and the V30 that differentiate these phones from one another, and that's ultimately what's going to influence a lot of people's buying decision. With the Note 8, it's all about the S Pen and how much you value what it can do. This is obviously what has always made a note, and with the S Pen you can of course jot down notes without waking the entire display, create drawings, translate sentences, annotate screen grabs, and send GIFs to people with Samsung's new live messaging feature. It's also just great as a tool that provides more accuracy and precision than what you can get with just your finger. What makes the V30 special or any of the previous V series phones is its focus on audio, photography, and superior video capabilities. The V30 comes with a hi-fi quad DAC for a rich audio listening experience, especially if you have a pair of high impedance headphones, which will allow you to get the most out of it. But this quad DAC also means that you can record high quality audio files and get better quality audio with less distortion when recording video. The other thing that differentiates these two phones is the camera experiences, and picture quality is a pretty important factor when it comes to deciding between smartphone cameras, but with the V30 and Note 8, there's a little more to the decision-making process. They both offer dual cameras, but with slightly different approaches. The V30 has a 16 megapixel main sensor with f1.6 aperture and optical image stabilization, and a secondary wide-angle lens at f1.9. The Note 8 comes with two 12 megapixel sensors that are both optically stabilized. The main sensor is a standard angle at f1.7, and instead of a wide angle lens for a bigger field of view, Samsung opted for a secondary telephoto lens that offers 2x optical zoom, which means you can zoom into subjects without any loss in quality. Samsung's camera also lets you take photos with a depth effect for that nice blurry background, which is a feature that's pretty common on a lot of smartphones with dual cameras, but it's a feature that LG hasn't bothered to add to their cameras, even though they've been doing dual cameras for a while. This may sound like a cop-out statement, but whether you prefer wide or telephoto, it's really going to be up to you. They both have their own use cases, but for me personally, I prefer a wide angle lens since I find it to be more useful in a bigger variety of situations, and to me, wide angle lenses are just a lot more fun to take pictures with. Both cameras are pretty neck and neck when it comes to quality. They're great outdoors and great in low light, and after using both cameras, the only difference that I really notice is that Samsung's camera has much better dynamic range. It's less likely to overexpose and blow out highlights, and you get a lot more detail in dark, shadowy areas, but in terms of just overall sharpness, color, and detail, they're both pretty excellent cameras. Where the V30's camera really stands out is on the video side of things. The V30 has an extensive amount of manual video controls, and this year LG has taken it to the next level by offering the ability to shoot in log format, which you can later take into post-production and grade the footage to look exactly how you want. The V30's camera is really the closest thing that you'll get to a DSLR or mirrorless camera inside of a smartphone. Taking a look at the V30 and Note 8 from the outside, they're made from the same materials, but they feel pretty different in the hand. You've got two phones made mostly of glass, but the Note 8 has a more boxy and angular look to it, whereas the V30 has rounded corners and sides, and it resembles the S8's design a lot more than it does the Note 8. The boxy shape and flatter sides of the Note 8 helps out a lot with the grip, but the V30 definitely is the prettier looking phone and feels a lot more comfortable in the hand. If you care about one-handed use, the V30 is much more manageable since it isn't quite as tall as the Note 8. When looking at these two phones from the front, they both look pretty similar. You've got screens that practically go edge to edge and super thin bezels all the way around. Typically, Samsung smartphone displays have been far superior to LG's, but with the V30, LG made the switch back to OLED, which is a technology that Samsung has been using on their smartphones for a long time, and this new display on the V30 stacks up extremely well to Samsung's. The V30 has a 6-inch Quad HD POLED screen, which is still an active matrix OLED display, but LG just calls it plastic OLED. It's easily the best screen LG has ever put on a smartphone. It's vibrant, colorful with deep dark blacks, and overall very pleasant to look at. The Note 8's display is slightly bigger at 6.3 inches, but it's every bit as gorgeous. After all, it is a Samsung display and we just expect it to be a good screen. You can't really go wrong with either one because they're both incredible looking displays for pretty much anything from web browsing, watching videos, playing games, and they even support HDR content. In the software department, they're both running Android Nougat at the moment with their respective software skins. Next to Samsung's UI, LG is a little more on the super colorful and cartoony side. It's a big improvement over older versions of their UI, but Samsung's experience definitely feels a little bit more polished with cleaner animations and a more muted color scheme. Feature-wise though, they're both pretty similar. You've got always-on displays that show notifications and are highly customizable with different clocks and images. There's a new feature on the V30 called the floating bar, which replaced the secondary display from the V10 and V20, and it gives you quick shortcuts to apps, contacts, media controls, and essentially offers a lot of the same functionality as Samsung's Edge UX. For AI assistants, the V30 relies solely on Google Assistant, but with the Note 8 you have Google Assistant and Samsung's own Bixby that does add a little bit of redundancy, but there are some cool things that it can do, like asking it to change the screen's brightness or download an app that makes it pretty useful at times. So that about wraps up this comparison between the LG V30 and the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. What do you guys think about the V30 and the Note 8, and which one do you think is better? Which one would you choose? Let us know down in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. We definitely appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel, which is also down below if you haven't already. And of course, check us out on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, Google+, all that good stuff will be linked down below. And of course, check the website as well for more in-depth coverage, AndroidAuthority.com, because we are your source for all things Android.